Ma'am, I need to speak with Deputy Director Catherine Vale immediately. This is Agent Rodriguez, from the Phoenix Field Office. That was the moment my sister Maya's world collapsed, and mine finally made sense. She had called the FBI to report what she believed was identity theft, after seeing my name on a federal document she was not supposed to access. Instead of validating her assumption that her failure sister could never achieve anything significant, Agent Rodriguez spent the next 10 minutes explaining why disturbing a deputy director during a national security briefing was a career-limiting decision. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Catherine Vale, and this is the story of how the family black sheep became the woman standing between chaos and order. Growing up in the affluent suburb of Westbrook Heights, Connecticut, our family operated according to a carefully constructed hierarchy of value and expectation. My parents, Richard and Eleanor Hartwell, had built their social standing on the foundation of my older sister Maya's achievements and my younger brother David's potential. I existed somewhere in the uncomfortable middle space, neither the golden child nor the baby who could do no wrong. Maya had followed the prescribed path with mathematical precision. Honor roll throughout high school, acceptance to Yale University, marriage to Jonathan Pierce immediately after graduation, and the production of 2 perfectly behaved grandchildren who spent their summers at the country club my parents had joined specifically to showcase their family's success. Maya's life was a airily curated exhibition of conventional achievement that provided my parents with endless opportunities for social validation. David, 8 years younger than me, possessed the kind of natural charisma that made adults predict great things for his future before he had demonstrated any particular competence. He was the star of every school play, captain of multiple sports teams, and recipient of the kind of automatic encouragement that some children learn to expect as their birthright. I was the one who asked too many questions, stayed up late reading books that had not been assigned, and displayed an uncomfortable fascination with subjects that did not translate into dinner party conversation. While Maya studied business administration and David excelled at activities that looked impressive on college applications, I gravitated toward courses in criminology, forensic science, and constitutional law that my parents dismissed as television subjects. The dinner table conversations that shaped my adolescence followed predictable patterns. Maya would share updates about her academic achievements or social successes. David would describe his latest triumph in athletics or theater, and I would listen while my parents praised their accomplishments and offered guidance for their continued advancement. When my turn came to speak, my interests were met with polite tolerance at best and active discouragement at worst. Catherine, my mother would say when I mentioned my fascination with criminal justice, those are very dark subjects for a young woman to pursue. Have you considered something more appropriate like education or social work? My father, a successful investment banker who measured all achievement in terms of financial return and social status, was more direct in his skepticism. Law enforcement is not a career for people from our background, Catherine. It is a job for people who cannot access better opportunities. These conversations established a pattern that would persist well into my adult years. My interests were categorized as phases to be outgrown rather than passions to be developed. My achievements, when they occurred, were acknowledged briefly before the conversation returned to family members whose successes were easier to understand and celebrate. The first indication that my path would diverge significantly from family expectations emerged during my junior year of high school when I enrolled in an advanced placement course in government and politics. The teacher, Mr. Benjamin Torres, had spent 15 years as a federal prosecutor before transitioning to education, and he brought a level of real-world insight to constitutional law that transformed abstract concepts into urgent, contemporary issues. Ms. Torres recognized something in my approach to complex legal problems that even I had not yet understood. While other students focused on memorizing precedents and procedures, I demonstrated an intuitive understanding of how legal principles applied to practical situations involving competing interests and limited information. I could analyze case studies, and identify the underlying patterns that determined why certain investigations succeeded while others failed. Catherine, Mr. Torres said after class one afternoon, have you considered pursuing a career in federal law enforcement? The question surprised me because no one had previously suggested that my interests could translate into a viable professional path. I had always assumed that my fascination with criminal justice was simply an intellectual curiosity rather than a potential career foundation. He continued, the FBI actively recruits candidates who can think systematically about complex problems and communicate effectively under pressure. Your analytical skills and your ability to see connections that others miss are exactly what federal agencies need. Ms. Torres arranged for me to participate in a youth leadership program sponsored by the FBI field office in New Haven. The program involved a week-long intensive introduction to federal law enforcement, including sessions on investigative techniques, constitutional law, cybersecurity, and counterterrorism. For the first time in my academic experience, I was surrounded by adults who shared my interests and who treated those interests as professionally valuable rather than personally problematic. The program culminated in a mock investigation where participants worked in teams to solve a complex case involving multiple jurisdictions and competing priorities. Our team was assigned a scenario involving financial fraud that had expanded into international money laundering and potential terrorism finance. While other teams struggled to coordinate their efforts and prioritize conflicting evidence, I found myself naturally assuming a leadership role that enabled our group to develop a comprehensive strategy for addressing all aspects of the case. Special Agent Maria Santos, who supervised our team during the exercise, pulled me aside afterward for a conversation that would influence every decision I made over the following decade. Catherine, she said, I have been running this program for 6 years, and I have never seen a high school student demonstrate the kind of strategic thinking you displayed today. You have the intellectual capability and the leadership instincts that federal law enforcement needs. She handed me her business card and continued, when you are ready to make decisions about college and career planning, I want you to contact me. The Bureau has scholarship programs and internship opportunities for candidates who show exceptional potential. I returned home from that week with a sense of purpose and direction that I had never previously experienced. For the first time, my interests had been validated by professionals who understood their practical application. I had discovered a career path that would allow me to use my analytical skills to address problems that mattered at the highest levels of national importance. My enthusiasm about the FBI youth program was met with the kind of concerned silence that preceded difficult family conversation. That evening, my parents requested a private discussion in my father's study, a formal setting reserved for addressing serious issues that required immediate correction. Catherine, my mother began, we are concerned about the direction your interests are taking. Law enforcement is a dangerous profession that is not appropriate for young women from our social background. My father was characteristically direct. We have invested significant resources in your education and development. Catherine, we expect you to pursue opportunities that reflect well on our family and provide appropriate security for your future. They had researched typical career outcomes for FBI agents, and were disturbed by what they considered inadequate compensation compared to professional alternatives like medicine, law, or business. They worried about the physical dangers associated with federal law enforcement, and the social implications of a career that would make me different from other women in our community. Maya is engaged to a wonderful young man who will provide her with the kind of life she deserves, my mother explained. David is already showing interest in finance, which could lead to opportunities in your father's firm. We want you to have similar advantage. The conversation continued for over an hour, with my parents presenting alternative career paths that would be more suitable for someone with my academic capabilities and family background. They suggested pre-med programs that would lead to prestigious medical specialties, law school followed by positions at respected firms, or business programs that could eventually result in executive roles at major corporations. Throughout this discussion, they never questioned my intellectual ability or my potential for professional success. Their concerns were entirely focused on the social and financial implications of my chosen direction. They wanted me to succeed, but only within parameters that they could understand and celebrate with their social circle. I listened respectfully to their concerns, but I also recognized that their objections were based on misconceptions about federal law enforcement and assumptions about what would make me happy and fulfilled. They were trying to protect me from what they perceived as limitations, but they did not understand that I was trying to protect myself from the kind of life that would leave me feeling empty and disconnected from meaningful work. I appreciate your concerns, I said finally, but I need to pursue the path that feels authentic to who I am, not the path that looks appropriate to other people. The disappointment in their expressions was unmistakable, but I also detected something else. For the first time, they were realizing that I would not automatically conform to their expectations, simply because they had been clearly articulated. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Senior year presented the practical challenge of translating my career interests into specific educational choices. While Maya had attended Yale, and David was already being recruited by prestigious universities for his athletic abilities, I focused my applications on institutions with strong criminal justice programs and established relationships with federal agencies. I applied to George Washington University, American University, Georgetown, and several state schools known for their law enforcement partnerships. My academic record was strong enough to gain acceptance at competitive institutions, but my choice of major continued to puzzle and concern my family. When I received acceptance letters, including a partial scholarship to George Washington University's criminal justice program, my parents' response was tepid at best. They attended my high school graduation ceremony, but their conversations with other parents focused primarily on Maya's recent engagement and David's athletic achievement. When asked about my plans, they would mention that I was attending George Washington University, but would quickly change the subject before anyone could ask about my intended major. The summer before college was marked by a series of increasingly tense conversations about my decision to pursue federal law enforcement. My parents arranged meetings with family friends who worked in more conventional professions, hoping that exposure to successful lawyers, doctors, and business executives would convince me to reconsider my chosen path. These well-intentioned interventions had the opposite effect. The profession my parents enlisted to discourage my career choice often displayed fundamental misunderstandings about modern law enforcement, and seemed to believe that federal agents spent their time in situations resembling television dramas, rather than conducting sophisticated investigations involving financial crimes, cybersecurity, and national security threats. Their lack of accurate information about my chosen field reinforced my conviction that I was making the right decision for reasons they could not appreciate. I was not pursuing law enforcement because I was attracted to danger or excitement. I was drawn to the intellectual challenges and the opportunity to apply analytical skills to problems that had genuine consequences for public safety and national security. Moving to Washington, D.C. for my freshman year felt like stepping into a different world where my interests were not just tolerated but actively cultivated. George Washington University's criminal justice program attracted students who shared my fascination with complex investigations and systemic approaches to crime prevention. For the first time in my academic career, I was surrounded by peers who asked sophisticated questions about constitutional law, forensic science, and federal jurisdiction, rather than treating these subjects as curiosity. My professors had extensive experience in federal agencies, and they structured their courses around real case studies that demonstrated how theoretical knowledge applied to practical investigation. I learned about the evolution of federal law enforcement capabilities, the coordination challenges involved in multi-jurisdictional cases, and the technological innovations that were transforming how agents gathered and analyzed evidence. More importantly, I began to understand that federal law enforcement had evolved far beyond the stereotypes that shaped my parents' concern. Modern FBI operations involved sophisticated financial investigations, cybersecurity initiatives, counterintelligence activities, and counterterrorism efforts that required advanced analytical skills and extensive coordination among multiple agencies and international partners. The intellectual demands of this work aligned perfectly with my natural interests and capability. I thrived in courses that required synthesizing complex information from multiple sources, identifying patterns that revealed underlying criminal enterprises, and developing strategies for addressing threats that crossed traditional boundaries between domestic and international law enforcement. During my sophomore year, I applied for and received an internship with the FBI Washington Field Office, where I worked with experienced agents on cases involving financial fraud and cybercrime. The internship provided exposure to real investigations and allowed me to observe how federal agents applied their training to evolving threats that required continuous learning and adaptation. Special Agent Santos, who had maintained contact with me since the high school youth program, served as my mentor during this internship. She helped me understand the career progression opportunities within the Bureau and the various specializations that would allow me to focus my expertise on areas that matched my particular interests and skill. "Catherine," she told me during one of our regular mentoring sessions, "you have the analytical capability and the leadership potential to advance rapidly within the Bureau, but you need to understand that success in federal law enforcement requires more than technical competence. You need to develop the communication skills and political awareness that will allow you to work effectively with diverse partners and stakeholders." My increasing enthusiasm for my studies and internship experience corresponded with a growing distance from my family, who struggled to understand why I was choosing a path that seemed to lead away from the conventional markers of success they value. Phone calls home became brief and focused on practical matters, rather than meaningful discussions about my academic progress or professional development. When I described my internship experiences, or shared excitement about particularly interesting cases I had observed, my family's responses were polite, but clearly uncomfortable. They seemed to worry that my exposure to criminal investigations and federal law enforcement operations was somehow changing me in ways they could not predict or control. Maya, who had married Jonathan during my sophomore year, was particularly vocal about her concerns regarding my career choice. During family gatherings, she would make comments about wanting me to find a profession that would allow me to meet appropriate men and build the kind of family life she considered normal and desirable. "Catherine," she said during one particularly difficult Thanksgiving dinner, "you are so smart and capable. I just worry that you are limiting your options by focusing on such a specialized field. Most people do not understand what FBI agents actually do, and that could make dating and social relationships more complicated." My parents nodded in agreement, clearly relieved that Maya had articulated concerns they shared, but had been hesitant to express direct. They wanted me to be successful, but they also wanted my success to fit within social frameworks they could easily explain and celebrate. I tried to explain that my work provided intellectual satisfaction and sense of purpose that I had never experienced in other contexts, but these arguments seemed to reinforce their belief that I was pursuing an unusual path that would ultimately lead to personal and social isolation. Despite my family's reservations, my junior and senior years of college solidified my commitment, federal law enforcement, as both a career choice and a personal calling. My academic performance earned recognition from professors and internship supervisors, who recommended me for accelerated programs and leadership opportunities within federal agencies. I was selected for an advanced internship with the FBI's Financial Crimes Section, where I worked on cases involving complex money laundering schemes and international financial fraud. This experience provided exposure to the kind of high-level investigations that required coordination among multiple federal agencies and international law enforcement partners. The intellectual demands of this work exceeded anything I had previously encountered in academic settings. Every case required mastering new technical information, understanding evolving criminal methodologies, and developing innovative approaches to evidence gathering and analysis. The stakes were genuine, and the consequences of success or failure extended far beyond personal achievement to public safety and national security. During my senior year, I was recruited for the FBI's Accelerated Career Development Program, which would allow me to begin my federal career immediately after graduation, rather than waiting for standard application cycle. The program was highly competitive and reserved for candidates who had demonstrated exceptional academic performance and leadership potential during their undergraduate internship. My selection for this program represented validation of my career choice and confirmation that my skills and interests aligned with federal law enforcement needs. However, it also meant that my path would diverge even further from conventional expectations, and that my family's concerns about my choices would probably intensify rather than diminish. The night before my college graduation, my parents requested one final conversation about my career plans, hoping that 4 years of distance might have provided me with perspective that would lead to different decisions about my professional future. We met in the hotel restaurant near campus, and they began by expressing pride in my academic achievements and recognition of my intellectual capability. They acknowledged that I had excelled in my chosen field of study, and that I had earned opportunities that reflected well on my dedication and competence. "Catherine," my father said, "we want you to know that we are proud of what you have accomplished. You have always been exceptionally bright, and your professors clearly recognize your potential." My mother continued, "We are not questioning your ability to succeed in federal law enforcement. We simply want to make sure you have considered all of your options before committing to a path that will be difficult to change later." They had researched alternative career paths that would allow me to use my criminal justice education in different contexts. Corporate security positions that offered higher compensation and more conventional work environments, legal careers that would provide social status and financial security, consulting opportunities that would allow me to apply my analytical skills to business problems rather than criminal investigation. I listened carefully to their suggestions, recognizing that their concerns came from genuine love and desire to protect me from what they perceived as unnecessary challenges and limitations. They were not trying to undermine my confidence or dismiss my capability. They were trying to guide me toward what they believed would be a more secure and socially acceptable future. "I understand your concerns," I replied, "and I appreciate that they come from wanting what is best for me. But I need you to understand that what you consider limitations, I consider opportunities to do work that matters in ways that most careers cannot provide." I tried to explain that federal law enforcement offered intellectual challenges and opportunities for positive impact that I had not found in any other field. I described the satisfaction of working on cases that protected people from sophisticated criminal enterprises, and the sense of purpose that came from contributing to national security in measurable ways. My parents listened politely, but I could see that my explanations did not address their fundamental concerns about my choice to pursue a career that would make me different from other women in our social circle, and that would not provide the conventional markers of success they valued for their children. The conversation ended with mutual expressions of love and respect, but also with the understanding that we had reached an impasse that would probably persist indefinitely. They would continue to hope that I would eventually choose a more conventional path, and I would continue to pursue the career that felt authentic to my interest and capability. As I prepared for graduation and the beginning of my FBI career, I carried both excitement about my professional future and sadness about the distance that my choices had created between me and my family. I hoped that time and success would eventually help them understand that I had chosen wisely, but I also accepted that their approval might never come. The woman who walked across the stage to receive her diploma was fundamentally different from the uncertain high school student who had first discovered her interest in federal law enforcement. I had developed confidence in my analytical abilities, clarity about my professional goals, and determination to pursue meaningful work regardless of external expectations or conventional definitions of success. Tomorrow's chapter will reveal how this foundation was tested when I entered the FBI Academy and discovered that earning respect from family members was only the first challenge in a career that would demand everything I had learned and more than I yet understood about leadership, sacrifice,
and the price of protecting others. The FBI Academy at Quantico represented more than a career transition. It served as the crucible where theoretical knowledge would be forged into practical capability under conditions designed to test every assumption about personal limitations and professional potential. The 20-week program would determine whether my academic achievements could translate into operational effectiveness in an environment where failure carried consequences far beyond disappointing grades. My arrival at Quantico in September following graduation marked the beginning of the most demanding educational experience I had ever encountered. The academy housed 48 new agent trainees in my class, each selected from thousands of applicants, based on academic excellence, physical capability, psychological stability, and demonstrated leadership potential. These individuals represented the culmination of rigorous screening processes that had eliminated 90% of interested candidates before they reached this point. The diversity of backgrounds among my fellow trainees provided immediate insight into the FBI's evolving recruitment strategies and operational requirements. Former military officers brought tactical experience and discipline developed through combat deployment. Attorneys contributed sophisticated understanding of constitutional law and federal jurisdiction. Computer scientists offered expertise in cybersecurity and digital forensics. Accountants possessed specialized knowledge of financial crimes and white-collar investigation. Each trainee had been selected for specific capabilities that would enhance the Bureau's capacity to address contemporary threats. My background in criminal justice and analytical problem-solving positioned me within this group as someone whose strengths lay in synthesizing complex information and identifying patterns that revealed underlying criminal enterprises. The challenge would be demonstrating that these academic capabilities could function effectively under the physical and psychological pressures that characterized real federal operations. The Academy's physical fitness requirements extended far beyond basic health and conditioning standards. Trainees were expected to develop the cardiovascular endurance, functional strength and tactical agility necessary for operations that might require pursuing suspects through difficult terrain, maintaining alertness during extended surveillance, or performing effectively while wearing heavy protective equipment under stressful conditions. My preparation for these demands had begun months before arriving at Quantico, but the intensity of academy training revealed the difference between adequate fitness and operational readiness. Morning physical training sessions included distance running, strength conditioning, defensive tactics and firearms proficiency training that progressively increased in complexity and intensity throughout the 20-week program. The psychological demands proved equally challenging and far more sophisticated than I had anticipated. Trainees participated in scenario-based exercises that simulated high-stress decision-making under conditions of incomplete information and competing priorities. These exercises were designed to reveal how individuals responded to pressure, uncertainty, and ethical dilemmas that had no clear correct answer. One particularly memorable exercise involved a simulated hostage situation where trainees were required to negotiate with an armed suspect while coordinating with tactical teams and managing communications with multiple command centers. The scenario included deliberately conflicting information from different sources, time constraints that prevented thorough analysis of all available options, and ethical considerations that complicated simple tactical solutions. My approach to this exercise reflected the analytical methodology I had developed throughout my academic career. Rather than focusing immediately on tactical responses, I spent crucial initial minutes establishing clear communication protocols, verifying information sources, and identifying the underlying motivations that were driving the suspect's behavior. This systematic approach enabled me to develop a negotiation strategy that addressed the suspect's actual concerns rather than simply responding to immediate threats. The exercise concluded successfully when the suspect surrendered without violence, but the debriefing session revealed that my methodical approach had impressed instructors while generating mixed reactions from fellow trainees. Some recognized the value of thorough analysis under pressure, while others worried that my deliberate decision-making process might be too slow for situations requiring immediate tactical responses. Special Agent Martinez, who supervised this particular exercise, provided feedback feedback that would influence my understanding of leadership development throughout my career. He explained that effective federal agents needed to balance analytical thoroughness with operational decisiveness, and that the most successful investigators learned to compress their decision-making process without sacrificing analytical rigor. Agent Vale, he said, your systematic approach to complex problems is exactly what the Bureau needs for sophisticated investigations. The challenge will be learning to apply that same analytical capability under time constraints that do not allow for complete information gathering.
The Academy's academic curriculum covered constitutional law, criminal procedure, investigative techniques, forensic science, and federal jurisdiction with an intensity that exceeded most graduate programs. Trainees were expected to master complex legal concepts while simultaneously developing practical skills in evidence collection, witness interviewing, and case preparation that would be immediately applicable in field assignments. My academic background provided advantages in courses that required theoretical understanding of legal principles and investigative methodology, but the Academy's approach to education emphasized practical application under realistic conditions, rather than abstract knowledge acquisition. Every concept was taught in the context of actual cases and scenarios that demonstrated how theoretical knowledge translated into effective operations. The firearms training component presented particular challenges for someone whose previous experience with weapons had been limited to academic study of ballistics and forensic evidence analysis. The Academy's marksmanship requirements were rigorous and non-negotiable, reflecting the reality that FBI agents must be prepared to use deadly force in situations where their lives or the lives of others were threatened. I approached firearms training with the same systematic methodology that had served me well in academic settings, working with instructors to understand the mechanical principles underlying accuracy and safety, while developing the muscle memory necessary for effective performance under stress. This process required hundreds of hours of practice and multiple iterations of proficiency testing before I achieved the standards required for graduation. The legal studies curriculum proved more aligned with my existing strengths, as it built upon the constitutional law foundation I had developed during my undergraduate education. However, the Academy's approach to legal instruction emphasized practical application in field conditions, rather than theoretical analysis in controlled academic environments. Instructors presented complex scenarios involving Fourth Amendment protections, Miranda rights, federal jurisdiction questions, and evidentiary requirements that would determine whether investigations resulted in successful prosecutions or dismissed cases. These exercises required rapid analysis of legal precedents and immediate application of constitutional principles under time constraints that mimicked real operational conditions. My performance in these exercises consistently ranked among the highest in our class, but instructors emphasized that academic excellence would be meaningless without the communication skills necessary to present findings clearly to supervisors, prosecutors, and eventually juries who would determine the ultimate success or failure of investigation. The Academy's leadership training component addressed the reality that new agents would be expected to assume supervisory responsibilities relatively early in their careers, and that effective federal law enforcement required coordination among multiple agencies with different cultures, priority, and operational procedures. Leadership exercises included commanding multi-agency task forces, managing complex investigations involving competing jurisdictions, and coordinating resources during crisis situations that required immediate decisions with long-term consequences. These scenarios were designed to identify trainees who possessed the analytical capability and communication skills necessary for advancement to supervisory positions. My performance in these exercises revealed both strengths and areas requiring development. My analytical approach to problem solving enabled me to develop comprehensive strategies that addressed multiple objectives simultaneously, and my communication skills allowed me to present complex plans clearly to diverse audiences with different levels of technical expertise. However, my natural inclination toward thorough analysis sometimes conflicted with the rapid decision-making requirements of crisis situations. I learned to compress my analytical process without sacrificing essential elements, developing the ability to identify critical information quickly while postponing less urgent considerations until time permitted more thorough evaluation. One particularly challenging exercise involved managing a simulated terrorism investigation that required coordinating with local law enforcement, federal agencies, and international partners, while maintaining operational security and managing media attention. The scenario included deliberately conflicting intelligence from different sources, resource limitations that prevented optimal responses, and political pressures that complicated operational decisions. My approach to this exercise reflected lessons learned from earlier training experience. I established clear communication protocols immediately, designated specific responsibilities to team members based on their expertise and capabilities, and developed contingency plans that could be implemented rapidly if initial strategies proved ineffective. The exercise concluded with successful neutralization of the simulated threat, but more importantly, it demonstrated my ability to function effectively as an operational leader under conditions that closely resembled real federal investigation. The feedback from instructors and fellow trainees indicated that my combination of analytical capability and leadership potential positioned me for rapid advancement within the Bureau. During the final weeks of academy training, trainees were required to express preferences for initial field assignments and specialized training programs that would shape their early career development. These decisions would determine not only immediate work assignments, but also long-term career trajectories within different Bureau divisions and operational specialties. My interests and demonstrated capabilities aligned most closely with white-collar crime investigations, particularly cases involving complex financial fraud and cybercrime that required sophisticated analytical skills and extensive coordination among multiple agencies. This specialization would allow me to build upon my academic foundation while developing operational experience in areas where the Bureau faced evolving challenges and expanding responsibility. The Financial Crimes Division offered opportunities to work on cases involving international money laundering, securities fraud, public corruption, and organized crime enterprises that operated across traditional jurisdictional boundaries. These investigations required the kind of systematic analysis and pattern recognition that had characterized my strongest academic performances, but they also demanded the ability to function effectively in field environments that presented physical and psychological challenges. My selection for white-collar crime specialization reflected both personal interests and Bureau needs for agents who could navigate the increasing complexity of financial crimes in an interconnected global economy. The work would require continuous learning about evolving criminal methodologies, technological innovations, and regulatory frameworks that affected federal jurisdiction and investigative procedure. Special Agent Rodriguez, who had maintained contact with me since my undergraduate internship, provided guidance about the long-term career implications of different specialization choices. She explained that white-collar crime experience provided excellent preparation for senior leadership positions because it required the broad analytical capability and multi-agency coordination skills that characterized executive-level responsibility. Agent Vale, she told me during one of our discussions about career planning, your analytical strengths and leadership potential suggest that you should be thinking about your career trajectory in terms of senior management positions, rather than simply operational specialization. White-collar crime experience will provide the foundation you need for advancement to supervisory and executive roles. Academy graduation represented both the culmination of intensive training and the beginning of practical application in field assignments, where theoretical knowledge would be tested under operational conditions. My academic performance throughout the program had consistently ranked in the top 5% of our class, and my leadership exercises had demonstrated capabilities that instructors considered indicative of future advancement potential. The graduation ceremony included recognition for academic excellence, physical fitness achievement, and leadership development, with awards presented to trainees who had distinguished themselves in different aspects of the comprehensive training program. I received the Academic Excellence Award for maintaining the highest grade point average throughout the 20-week curriculum and I was selected for the Leadership Development Award based on performance in scenario-based exercises. More significantly, I was invited to participate in the Bureau's Accelerated Career Development Program, which provided additional training opportunities and mentorship relationships designed to prepare high-potential agents for rapid advancement to supervisory positions. This program was highly selective and reserved for graduates who had demonstrated exceptional analytical capability, leadership potential, and commitment to Bureau mission and value. My parents attended the graduation ceremony, representing their first direct exposure to the professional environment I had chosen, and the colleagues who would shape my career development. Their reactions were complex, reflecting pride in my achievements combined with continued uncertainty about the career path I had selected. The ceremony itself provided them with insight into the sophistication and professionalism that characterized modern federal law enforcement, but their conversations with other families revealed that they remained uncomfortable with explaining my career choice to their social circle. They expressed pride in my academic achievements while continuing to hope that my federal law enforcement experience would eventually lead to opportunities in more conventional professional settings. My initial field assignment to the FBI's Washington field office reflected both my demonstrated capabilities and the Bureau's strategic priorities for addressing evolving threats in the national capital region. The Washington field office handled some of the most complex and politically sensitive investigations in the federal system, requiring agents who could function effectively under intense scrutiny while maintaining the analytical rigor necessary for successful prosecution. My assignment to the Financial Crimes Unit aligned with my specialization training and provided opportunities to work on cases involving public corruption, securities fraud, and international money laundering that required sophisticated investigative techniques and extensive coordination with other federal agents. These cases would test every aspect of my academy training while providing exposure to the kinds of high-level investigations that shaped federal law enforcement priorities. The transition from academy training to operational assignments required additional preparation beyond the technical skills and theoretical knowledge developed during the 20-week program. Field agents needed to understand the political and bureaucratic environments that influenced federal investigations, the media attention that accompanied high-profile cases, and the career implications of success or failure in assignments that could affect national security or public confidence in federal institutions. Special Agent Martinez, who had supervised many of my academy exercises, provided guidance about managing the transition from training to operational responsibility. He emphasized that successful agents learned to balance analytical thoroughness with operational efficiency, and that the most effective investigators developed the ability to function independently while maintaining coordination with supervisors and partner agents. Agent Vale, he explained, your academy performance indicates that you have the technical capability and leadership potential for significant advancement within the Bureau. The challenge will be translating those capabilities into operational success in field assignments where the stakes are real and the margin for error is minimal. He continued, remember that every case you work will be evaluated, not only for immediate outcomes, but also for your development of the skills and judgment necessary for future responsibility. The Bureau is investing in your long-term potential, and your early assignments will determine whether that investment leads to the leadership positions you are capable of achieving. The intensity of academy training and the demands of preparing for field assignments had created additional distance between me and my family, who struggled to understand why I was choosing a career that seemed to require such significant personal sacrifices for uncertain professional reward. Their concerns focused not only on the physical dangers associated with federal law enforcement, but also on the social and financial implications of a career that they could not easily explain or celebrate. Maya, who had established herself as the family's primary example of conventional success, continued to express concerns about my career choice through pointed questions about my personal life and future plans. Her own marriage to a successful attorney had provided her with the social status and financial security that my parents considered appropriate objectives for their children, and she seemed genuinely puzzled by my commitment to a profession that would not provide similar advantage. "Catherine," she said during one of our increasingly rare phone conversations, "I understand that you find your work interesting, but have you considered what this career choice means for your personal life? Most men are intimidated by women in law enforcement, and the demands of federal work make it very difficult to maintain normal relationships." These conversations reflected fundamental differences in how we define success and personal fulfillment, but they also revealed the extent to which my career choice had created barriers to family relationships that had once provided emotional support and encouragement. My family's inability to understand my professional motivations was accompanied by my growing inability to relate to their priorities and concerns. My father's reactions were more restrained but equally indicative of his disappointment with my decision to pursue federal law enforcement, rather than opportunities that would have provided more conventional markers of achievement. His conversations with me became increasingly focused on practical matters rather than substantive discussions about my work or career development, suggesting that he had accepted my choice while remaining unable to celebrate it. During family gatherings, the conversations that had once included updates about my academic progress and professional development now focused primarily on Maya's social activities and David's college achievement. My career was acknowledged through polite inquiries that quickly transitioned to other topics, creating an unspoken understanding that my professional life was not a subject for family celebration or support. The academy experience had transformed not only my professional capabilities, but also my understanding of personal identity and the relationship between individual achievement and meaningful contribution to societal well-being. The intensive training environment had revealed strengths and capabilities that I had not previously recognized, while also clarifying the personal values and professional objectives that would guide my career development. The physical and psychological demands of academy training had developed confidence in my ability to function effectively under stress and uncertainty, while the academic curriculum had provided sophisticated understanding of the legal and procedural frameworks that governed federal investigation. More importantly, the leadership exercises had demonstrated that I possessed the analytical capability and communication skills necessary for advancement to positions of significant responsibility within the Bureau. The friendships developed with fellow trainees had created a professional network of colleagues who shared similar values and objectives, providing the kind of peer support and intellectual stimulation that had been missing from my family relationship. These relationships were based on mutual respect for professional competence and shared commitment to Bureau mission, rather than social status or conventional definitions of success. My perspective on career development had evolved from simple interest in criminal justice to sophisticated understanding of federal law enforcement as a profession that required continuous learning, personal sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to principles that sometimes conflicted with personal convenience or social expectations. This transformation reflected not only professional maturation, but also personal growth that would influence every aspect of my future development. As I prepared to begin my first field assignment, I carried both excitement about the opportunities ahead and realistic understanding of the challenges that would test every aspect of my academy training. The foundation had been established for a career that would demand everything I had learned and more than I yet understood about leadership, sacrifice, and the price of protecting others from threats they would never see or fully comprehend. The young woman who had graduated from the FBI Academy was fundamentally different from the college student who had first committed to federal law enforcement despite family objections. I had developed the technical skills, analytical capability, and personal confidence necessary for success in complex investigations, but more importantly, I had discovered a sense of purpose and professional identity that would sustain me through the challenges that lay ahead. Tomorrow's chapter will reveal how this foundation was tested when I encountered my first major case and discovered that academy training was only the beginning of an education that would continue throughout a career dedicated to protecting national security and public safety. The FBI Washington Field Office occupied a position of unique significance within the federal law enforcement hierarchy, serving as the operational center for investigations that frequently carried national security implications and attracted intense political scrutiny. My assignment to this facility represented both an opportunity to work on cases of exceptional complexity and a challenge to demonstrate that academy training could translate into effective performance under conditions where failure would have consequences extending far beyond personal career development. The building itself reflected the Bureau's evolution from a relatively small federal agency into a sophisticated intelligence and law enforcement organization responsible for protecting national security while maintaining constitutional protections for American citizens. Modern technology systems supported investigations that spanned multiple continents and required coordination with dozens of federal, state, and international agencies, while secure facilities enabled analysis of classified information that affected diplomatic relationships and military operations. My initial orientation to the Washington Field Office revealed the breadth of responsibilities that characterized contemporary federal law enforcement. The Financial Crimes Unit handled cases involving public corruption, securities fraud, money laundering, and organized crime enterprises that operated across traditional jurisdictional boundaries. These investigations required analytical capabilities that exceeded those needed for conventional criminal cases, as well as political sophistication necessary for navigating the complex bureaucratic environment that surrounded high-profile federal prosecution. Supervisory Special Agent Rebecca Thompson, who directed the Financial Crimes Unit, possessed over 15 years of experience in complex white-collar investigations and had developed a reputation throughout the Bureau for her ability to manage politically sensitive cases while maintaining the analytical rigor necessary for successful prosecution. Her approach to case management emphasized thorough preparation, systematic evidence analysis, and strategic coordination with prosecutors who would ultimately determine whether investigations resulted in meaningful consequences for criminal activity. Agent Thompson's initial briefing on my role within the unit established expectations that reflected both the Bureau's investment in my development and the immediate operational needs that would shape my early case assignment. She explained that new agents were typically assigned to support roles on established investigations before receiving primary responsibility for independent cases, but that my academy performance had positioned me for accelerated responsibilities if I could demonstrate effective performance under operational conditions. Agent Vale, she said during our first formal meeting, your academy instructors have indicated that you possess exceptional analytical capabilities and leadership potential. However, field operations present challenges that cannot be fully simulated in training environments. Your success will depend on your ability to apply theoretical knowledge to practical situations involving real consequences and genuine time constraints. She continued, the cases we handle in this unit frequently involve subjects who possess significant financial resources, sophisticated legal representation, and political connections that can complicate standard investigative procedures. Effective agents learn to navigate these challenges while maintaining focus on the underlying criminal activity that justifies federal intervention. My first significant case assignment emerged from an ongoing investigation into a complex financial fraud scheme that had attracted federal attention due to its interstate scope and potential connections to organized crime enterprise. The case involved a network of shell companies that appeared to be facilitating money laundering operations for criminal organizations while simultaneously defrauding legitimate investors through sophisticated securities manipulation schemes. The investigation had been initiated 6 months earlier when the Securities and Exchange Commission identified suspicious trading patterns that suggested coordinated market manipulation involving multiple publicly traded companies. Initial analysis had revealed a web of interconnected entities that obscured the true ownership structure of the companies involved while facilitating the movement of illicit funds through traditional banking systems. Special Agent Michael Rivera, who served as the primary case agent, developed substantial evidence regarding the mechanics of the fraud scheme,
but required additional analytical support to identify the individuals responsible for coordinating the criminal enterprise and to trace the flow of funds through the complex network of financial institutions and offshore entities that had been established to conceal the illegal activity. My assignment to support this investigation reflected both my demonstrated analytical capabilities and the Bureau's recognition that complex financial crimes required investigators who could synthesize information from multiple sources while identifying patterns that revealed underlying criminal structures. The case would test my ability to apply academy training to a real investigation involving sophisticated criminal activity and genuine consequences for both the subjects and the victims of the fraud scheme. Agent Rivera's initial briefing on the case provided insight into the investigative challenges that characterized modern financial crimes. The subjects had utilized legitimate business structures and established financial institutions to conceal their criminal activity, making it difficult to distinguish between legal business operations and illegal money laundering without extensive analysis of transaction patterns and organizational relations. Agent Vale, he explained, traditional investigative techniques are often insufficient for complex financial crimes because the subjects use the legitimate financial system to conceal their illegal activity. Success requires understanding both the criminal methodologies and the regulatory frameworks that govern legitimate financial operations. He continued, "Your role will be to analyze the financial records we have obtained through court orders and to identify patterns that reveal the true nature of the relationships among the various entities involved in this scheme. This analysis will determine whether we can develop sufficient evidence to support criminal prosecutions and asset forfeiture action." The evidence collected during the initial phases of the investigation included bank records, corporate filings, trading data, communications intercepts, and surveillance reports that documented the activities of suspected subjects over an 18-month period. This information required systematic analysis to identify the connections among different entities and individuals while determining which activities constituted criminal violations that could support federal prosecution. My approach to this analytical challenge reflected the systematic methodology I had developed throughout my academic and academy training. Rather than focusing immediately on specific transactions or relationships, I began by creating comprehensive maps of the organizational structures and financial flows that characterized the entire enterprise. This process required synthesizing information from multiple sources while identifying patterns that might not be apparent when examining individual components in isolation. The initial analysis revealed several significant patterns that had not been apparent during earlier phases of the investigation. The shell companies involved in the scheme were organized into distinct operational layers that served different functions within the overall criminal enterprise. Some entities appeared to exist solely for the purpose of obscuring ownership relationships, while others served as conduits for moving funds between legitimate and illegitimate activity. More importantly, the timing of various transactions suggested coordination among different components of the enterprise that indicated centralized control rather than independent criminal activity. This pattern implied the existence of an organizational hierarchy that could be targeted through strategic prosecutions designed to disrupt the entire enterprise rather than simply addressing individual criminal acts. My analysis also identified potential vulnerabilities in the scheme that could be exploited through additional investigative techniques. The subjects had relied heavily on electronic communications and digital financial transactions that created records susceptible to analysis even when the communications themselves were encrypted or otherwise protected. These records could provide evidence of coordination and intent that would be essential for successful prosecution. Agent Rivera's reaction to my initial findings indicated that the analytical approach I had developed was producing results that exceeded expectations for a new agent working on her first major case. The patterns I had identified aligned with his operational experience while providing new insights that could guide the next phases of the investigation. "Agent Vale," he said after reviewing my preliminary analysis, "this systematic approach to complex financial data is exactly what we need for sophisticated cases like this. You have identified relationships and patterns that we suspected but could not prove through traditional investigative methods. The insights generated through initial analysis enabled the investigative team to develop a comprehensive strategy for dismantling the criminal enterprise while gathering evidence sufficient for meaningful prosecution. This strategy required coordination among multiple federal agencies and careful timing to prevent subjects from destroying evidence or transferring assets beyond the reach of federal authority. My role in strategy development reflected growing recognition of my analytical capabilities and my potential for advancement within the Bureau's investigative hierarchy. Rather than simply providing support for decisions made by more experienced agents, I was invited to participate in strategic planning sessions where my insights directly influenced operational decisions and resource allocation. The strategy that emerged from these planning sessions involved a coordinated approach that would simultaneously target multiple components of the criminal enterprise while preserving evidence necessary for prosecutions and asset forfeiture proceedings. This approach required precise timing and extensive coordination among different investigative teams, but it offered the potential for dismantling the entire organization rather than simply disrupting individual criminal activity.
My analysis had identified specific individuals who appeared to occupy key positions within the organizational hierarchy, making them priority targets for additional investigation and potential prosecution. These individuals had attempted to insulate themselves from direct involvement in criminal activities by operating through intermediaries and shell companies, but their coordination of the overall enterprise had created patterns that revealed their central roles. The financial analysis had also identified assets that could be subject to forfeiture if criminal prosecutions were successful. These assets included real estate, investment accounts, and business interests that represented the proceeds of criminal activity and could be recovered for the benefit of fraud victims. The potential for significant asset recovery provided additional justification for the resources being allocated to the investigation. Special Agent Thompson's involvement in strategy development reflected the high-level attention that the case was receiving within the Bureau hierarchy. Her experience with complex white-collar investigations provided essential guidance for navigating the political and legal challenges that characterized high-profile federal prosecutions, while her relationships with prosecutors and other federal agencies facilitated the coordination necessary for successful outcomes. Agent Vale, she told me during one of our strategy planning sessions, your analytical work has transformed this investigation from a collection of suspicious activities into a comprehensive case against an organized criminal enterprise. This kind of systematic analysis is exactly what the Bureau needs for complex financial crime. The execution phase of the investigation required coordinating simultaneous operations across multiple jurisdictions, while maintaining operational security that would prevent subjects from destroying evidence or fleeing to avoid prosecution. This phase tested every aspect of my academy training while providing exposure to the practical challenges that characterized major federal investigations. My responsibilities during the execution phase included real-time analysis of evidence collected during search warrants and arrests, coordination with forensic accountants who were examining financial records, and communication with prosecutors who would make charging decisions based on the evidence we developed. These responsibilities required the ability to process complex information rapidly while maintaining accuracy under time constraints and operational pressure. The search warrants executed during the operation yielded substantial additional evidence that confirmed many of the patterns I had identified through initial analysis, while revealing new aspects of the criminal enterprise that had not been apparent from the financial records alone. Computer systems contained communications that documented coordination among different components of the organization, while physical documents provided evidence of intent that would be essential for successful prosecution. My role in analyzing this newly acquired evidence provided opportunities to demonstrate analytical capabilities under operational conditions, while contributing to immediate tactical decisions about additional investigative steps. The real-time nature of this analysis required compressing the thorough methodological approach I preferred into rapid assessments that could guide ongoing operations. The arrest phase of the operation proceeded according to the strategic plan we had developed, with subjects taken into custody simultaneously to prevent coordination of their responses and destruction of additional evidence. My analysis had identified the appropriate charges for each subject based on their specific roles within the criminal enterprise, enabling prosecutors to develop cases that accurately reflected the scope and severity of their criminal activity. The immediate results of the operation exceeded expectations in terms of both evidence collection and operational success. 12 individuals were arrested on charges ranging from securities fraud to money laundering, while substantial assets were seized pending forfeiture proceedings. More importantly, the operation had successfully dismantled a criminal enterprise that had been operating for several years while defrauding victims of millions of dollars. Agent Rivera's assessment of my contribution to the operation's success provided validation of the analytical approach I had developed while identifying areas for continued development. His feedback indicated that my systematic analysis had been essential for understanding the scope and structure of the criminal enterprise, while my real-time support during execution had contributed directly to operational success. Agent Vale, he said during our post-operation debriefing, your analytical work on this case represents exactly the kind of systematic thinking that complex financial crimes require. You have demonstrated the ability to process large amounts of complex information while identifying patterns that reveal underlying criminal activity. The successful conclusion of my first major case attracted attention within the Bureau hierarchy that extended beyond the Washington field office to include senior officials responsible for financial crimes policy and investigative priority. The case had demonstrated the effectiveness of systematic analytical approaches to complex white-collar crimes while providing a model for similar investigations involving organized criminal enterprise. My performance during the investigation resulted in commendations from both Agent Rivera and Supervisory Special Agent Thompson, who recommended me for accelerated advancement within the Bureau's career development program. These recommendations emphasized my analytical capabilities and operational effectiveness while identifying leadership potential that suggested suitability for supervisory responsibility. The case also provided opportunities for professional development through presentations to other Bureau units and federal agencies interested in the investigative techniques we had employed. These presentations required distilling complex analytical methods into clear explanations that could be understood and applied by investigators working on similar cases. My first presentation to a multi-agency audience took place at the FBI Academy, where I explained the systematic approach to financial analysis that had enabled us to identify the organizational structure of the criminal enterprise. The audience included experienced agents from multiple field offices as well as representatives from other federal agencies who were working on related investigations. The reception of this presentation exceeded my expectations and provided insight into the broader impact that analytical innovations could have on federal law enforcement capability. Audience questions focused on practical applications of the methodological approach, while identifying additional investigative scenarios where similar techniques might prove effective. Special Agent Martinez, who had supervised many of my academy exercises and maintained interest in my career development, attended this presentation and provided feedback that influenced my understanding of leadership opportunities within the Bureau. His assessment suggested that my combination of analytical capability and communication skills positioned me for rapid advancement to positions of increasing responsibility. Agent Vale, he told me after the presentation, this kind of systematic thinking about complex problems is exactly what the Bureau needs for senior leadership positions. Your ability to develop innovative approaches and communicate them effectively to diverse audiences indicates significant potential for advancement. The success of my first major case and the recognition it generated within the Bureau provided concrete evidence of professional achievement that my family could not easily dismiss or minimize. However, their reactions to my success revealed continued discomfort with my career choice and persistent hopes that my federal law enforcement experience would eventually lead to opportunities in more conventional professional settings. Maya's response to news of my successful case work reflected both pride in my achievement and concern about the personal costs associated with federal law enforcement responsibility. Her questions focused primarily on the demands of major investigations and their impact on work-life balance, rather than on the professional satisfaction or societal contribution that the work provides. Catherine, she said during one of our phone conversations, I am proud of your success, but I worry about what this kind of work is doing to your personal life. You sound different when you talk about these cases. more serious and focused on things that most people cannot relate to. My parents' reactions were similarly complex, reflecting genuine pride in my professional accomplishment, combined with continued uncertainty about the long-term implications of my career. They had attended a bureau ceremony where I received recognition for my contribution to the successful investigation, providing them with direct exposure to the professional environment and colleagues that shaped my daily experience. The ceremony had demonstrated the sophistication and significance of federal law enforcement work while providing my parents with insight into the respect and recognition that exceptional performance could generate within the bureau hierarchy. However, their conversations afterward revealed continued concerns about the social and personal implications of a career that required such intense focus and personal commitment. My father's reaction was characteristically restrained, but more positive than his previous responses to my career development. He acknowledged that my professional achievement represented genuine success by any reasonable measure while maintaining reservations about the personal sacrifices that such success appeared to require. "Catherine," he said, "I can see that you have found work that challenges you and recognizes your capabilities. I still worry about the demands this career places on you, but I cannot argue with the results you are achieving." The distance between my professional satisfaction and my family's continued ambivalence about my career choice created emotional challenges that required careful management. I had discovered work that provided intellectual stimulation, meaningful contribution to public safety, and genuine opportunities for advancement based on merit and performance. However, the inability to share this satisfaction fully with family members who had once provided emotional support created a sense of isolation that accompanied professional success. The successful completion of my first major case established credibility within the Bureau while providing foundation for advancement to cases of increasing complexity and responsibility. Supervisory Special Agent Thompson's assessment of my performance indicated readiness for assignment as primary agent on independent investigations, rather than simply providing analytical support for cases managed by more experienced colleagues. My selection for primary agent responsibilities represented accelerated advancement that reflected both demonstrated capability and Bureau confidence in my potential for continued development. This advancement would provide opportunities to manage all aspects of complex investigations, while building the leadership experience necessary for eventual advancement to supervisory position. The preparation for primary agent responsibilities required additional training in case management, personnel supervision, and coordination with prosecutors and other federal agents. This training built upon academy foundations, while addressing the practical challenges that characterized major federal investigations, involving multiple jurisdictions and competing priorities. My approach to this preparation reflected the systematic methodology that had characterized my previous professional development. I sought mentorship from experienced agents who had successfully managed complex cases, while studying the procedural and legal frameworks that governed federal investigations and prosecution. Special Agent Thompson provided guidance about the transition from analytical support to operational leadership, emphasizing the communication and coordination skills that were essential for managing investigations involving multiple team members and external agents. Her advice focused on maintaining analytical rigor while developing the decisiveness necessary for operational effectiveness. "Agent Vale," she explained, "your analytical capabilities will continue to be important, but primary agents must also develop the leadership skills necessary for coordinating diverse team members while managing the political and procedural challenges that characterize major federal investigations." The foundation had been established for advancement to positions of increasing responsibility within federal law enforcement. My first case had demonstrated analytical capability and operational effectiveness while providing credibility within the Bureau hierarchy that would support continued career development. The young agent who had completed her first major investigation possessed confidence in her professional capabilities and clear understanding of the career trajectory that would lead to positions of senior responsibility within federal law enforcement. The systematic approach that had enabled academy success and first case achievement would continue to guide development toward the leadership positions that my performance suggested were achievable through continued dedication and excellence. Tomorrow's chapter will reveal how this foundation supported advancement to supervisory responsibilities and the management of investigations that would test every aspect of my developing leadership capabilities while establishing the reputation that would eventually lead to executive positions within the Bureau hierarchy. The recognition generated by my successful contribution to the financial fraud investigation accelerated my career trajectory within the Bureau's hierarchy, leading to promotion to senior special agent after only 18 months of field experience. This advancement represented exceptional progress that reflected both demonstrated analytical capabilities and leadership potential identified by supervisors who recognized the value of systematic thinking applied to complex federal investigations. The promotion carried increased responsibilities that extended beyond individual casework to include mentoring newly assigned agents, coordinating multi-agency task force operations, and serving as primary liaison with federal prosecutors responsible for case development and trial preparation. These expanded duties required developing communication and leadership skills that would serve as foundation for eventual advancement to supervisory and executive positions within the Bureau. Supervisory Special Agent Thompson's recommendation for my promotion emphasized the unique combination of analytical rigor and operational effectiveness that had characterized my performance during the initial field assignment. Her assessment indicated that my systematic approach to complex investigations had established new standards for financial crimes analysis while demonstrating leadership qualities that suggested readiness for increased responsibility. The promotion ceremony provided my parents with additional exposure to the professional environment that shaped my career development, offering them insight into the respect and recognition that exceptional performance could generate within federal law enforcement. Their attendance at this formal recognition event represented the first time they had observed my professional achievements being celebrated by colleagues and supervisors who understood the significance of advancement within the Bureau hierarchy. However, their reactions continued to reflect fundamental concerns about the personal costs associated with federal law enforcement careers and persistent hopes that my success within the Bureau would eventually lead to opportunities in private sector positions that would provide greater financial security and social acceptability. Their pride in my achievement remained tempered by uncertainty about the long-term implications of my chosen career path. My father's conversation with other attendees at the promotion ceremony revealed his continued struggle to explain my professional trajectory to business associates who measured success primarily through financial compensation and social status. While he acknowledged my demonstrated competence and rapid advancement, he remained unable to celebrate my achievements with the enthusiasm he displayed regarding Maya's conventional successes or David's academic progress. The promotion to senior special agent coincided with assignment to a multi-agency organized crime task force that represented one of the Bureau's highest priority initiatives for addressing criminal enterprises that operated across traditional jurisdictional boundaries. This assignment reflected confidence in my analytical capabilities and leadership potential while providing exposure to investigations that required coordination among federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies with different priorities and operational procedures. The task force had been established to address the activities of criminal organizations that had evolved beyond traditional organized crime models to include sophisticated financial operations, international connections, and political corruption that threatened the integrity of legitimate institutions. These enterprises required investigative approaches that combined traditional law enforcement techniques with advanced analytical methods and extensive interagency cooperation. My role within the task force involved developing analytical frameworks for understanding complex criminal organizations while coordinating intelligence gathering and case development activities among participating agencies. This responsibility required translating sophisticated analytical insights into operational strategies that could be implemented by investigators with varying levels of technical expertise and different institutional priorities. The task force commander,
Deputy Assistant Director Robert Harrison possessed over 20 years of experience in organized crime investigations and had developed a reputation throughout federal law enforcement for his ability to manage politically sensitive cases while maintaining operational effectiveness. His leadership style emphasized collaborative decision-making and strategic thinking that aligned well with my analytical approach to complex problems. Deputy Assistant Director Harrison's initial briefing on my role within the task force established expectations that reflected both the significance of the assignment and the Bureau's investment in my continued development. He explained that success in multi-agency environments required political sophistication and communication skills that extended beyond the technical competencies needed for individual casework. Agent Vale, he said during our first operational meeting, your analytical capabilities have impressed supervisors throughout the Bureau, but task force leadership requires additional skills related to managing diverse personnel and coordinating operations among agencies with different cultures and priorities. This assignment will test your ability to function effectively as a senior leader within federal law enforcement. He continued, the criminal organizations we are targeting have adapted to law enforcement pressure by developing sophisticated operational security measures and extensive corruption networks that complicate traditional investigative approach. Success requires innovative thinking and systematic coordination that can overcome these defensive measures while maintaining the legal standards necessary for successful prosecution. The primary target of the task force investigation was a criminal enterprise that had evolved from traditional organized crime activities to include complex financial operations, technology-enabled crimes, and international networks that facilitated money laundering and human trafficking. This organization presented investigative challenges that required comprehensive understanding of both criminal methodologies and legitimate business practices that were being exploited for illegal purposes. My initial analysis of available intelligence revealed a sophisticated organizational structure that had been designed to insulate senior leadership from direct involvement in criminal activities while maintaining operational control over diverse criminal enterprises. The organization had adopted compartmentalized operational procedures that limited the information available to individual members while creating redundant command structures that could continue functioning despite law enforcement pressure. The financial analysis required examining legitimate business operations that served as fronts for criminal activities while identifying the methods used to integrate illegal proceeds into legal financial systems. This analysis revealed patterns of coordination among seemingly independent businesses that indicated centralized control and strategic planning that extended beyond traditional organized crime models. The technology components of the organization's operations included sophisticated communication security, digital currency transactions, and cybercrime activities that required collaboration with Bureau specialists who possessed technical expertise beyond my analytical background. This collaboration provided opportunities to develop understanding of emerging criminal methodologies while contributing analytical insights that enhanced technical investigation. My systematic approach to understanding the target organization involved creating comprehensive organizational charts that documented relationships among different components while identifying potential vulnerabilities that could be exploited through strategic investigation. This analysis required synthesizing information from multiple sources while developing hypotheses about organizational structure and operational procedures that could guide additional intelligence gathering efforts. The intelligence analysis revealed several significant vulnerabilities in the organization's defensive measures that could support successful law enforcement operations. The compartmentalized structure that protected senior leadership also created communication bottlenecks that could be exploited through targeted surveillance and intelligence gathering. The organization's reliance on legitimate business fronts created financial records that were susceptible to analysis despite efforts to obscure the true nature of transactions. Deputy Assistant Director Harrison's reaction to my analytical assessment indicated that the systematic approach I had developed was producing insights that exceeded expectations while providing strategic direction for the task force's operational plan. His feedback emphasized the value of comprehensive analysis in developing effective strategies for addressing sophisticated criminal enterprises. The insights generated through organizational analysis enabled the task force to develop a comprehensive strategy for disrupting the criminal enterprise while gathering evidence sufficient for meaningful prosecutions of senior leadership. This strategy required careful coordination among multiple agencies while balancing immediate operational needs with long-term strategic objectives that would prevent the organization from reconstituting after initial law enforcement pressure. My role in strategy development involved translating analytical insights into specific operational recommendations while coordinating intelligence requirements among participating agents. This responsibility required understanding the capabilities and limitations of different law enforcement organizations while developing plans that could be implemented effectively within existing legal and procedural frameworks. The strategy that emerged from collaborative planning sessions involved a phased approach that would begin with surveillance and intelligence gathering operations designed to confirm organizational structure and operational procedure. This initial phase would be followed by targeted investigations of specific criminal activities that would provide evidence for prosecutions while disrupting operational capability. The final phase would involve coordinated enforcement actions designed to dismantle the entire organization while maximizing asset recovery for victim compensation. The phased approach required precise timing and extensive coordination among federal agencies, state law enforcement organizations, and international partners who possessed jurisdiction over different components of the criminal enterprise. My analysis had identified critical interdependencies among different operational components that could be exploited to maximize the impact of enforcement actions while minimizing the organization's ability to adapt and continue criminal activity. The strategic planning process also addressed potential defensive measures that the organization might employ in response to law enforcement pressure. My analysis of previous cases involving similar criminal enterprises had identified common patterns in organizational responses to investigation and prosecution, enabling the task force to develop contingency plans for maintaining operational effectiveness despite subject countermeasures. Special Agent Martinez, who had maintained interest in my career development since academy graduation, participated in several strategy planning sessions as a consultant on organized crime investigative techniques. His experience provided essential guidance for anticipating challenges while validating the innovative approaches that were being developed through systematic analysis of organizational vulnerability. Agent Vale, he told me during one of our planning sessions, your analytical framework for understanding complex criminal organizations represents exactly the kind of systematic thinking that federal law enforcement needs for addressing modern threats. This approach could serve as a model for similar investigations involving sophisticated criminal enterprise. The implementation of the operational strategy required establishing an intelligence team responsible for coordinating information gathering activities among participating agencies while maintaining analytical capabilities necessary for real-time assessment of investigative development. My assignment as intelligence team leader represented the first significant leadership responsibility of my career and provided opportunities to develop management skills that would be essential for advancement to supervisory positions. The intelligence team included experienced investigators from multiple federal agencies, state law enforcement organizations, and international partners who brought diverse expertise and different operational priorities to the collaborative effort. Managing this diverse group required communication and coordination skills that extended beyond the technical competencies needed for individual analytical work. My approach to team leadership reflected the systematic methodology that had characterized my previous professional development. I established clear communication protocols that ensured effective information sharing while maintaining operational security necessary for protecting sources and methods. I developed analytical procedures that could accommodate different types of intelligence while producing consistent assessments that supported operational decision-making.
His feedback indicated that my combination of analytical capability and leadership effectiveness positioned me for rapid advancement to positions of increasing responsibility within the Bureau hierarchy. Agent Vale, he said during our mid-operation assessment meeting, your leadership of the intelligence team has exceeded expectations while demonstrating the kind of collaborative approach that complex investigations require. You have developed the management skills and strategic thinking that senior positions within the Bureau demand. 6 months into the task force operation, the intelligence team's systematic analysis identified a critical vulnerability in the target organization's operational security that created opportunities for decisive law enforcement action. The breakthrough emerged from pattern recognition that revealed coordination among seemingly independent criminal activities that indicated centralized planning and resource allocation by senior leadership. The discovery involved analysis of financial transactions that appeared routine when examined individually, but revealed suspicious patterns when evaluated systematically across multiple accounts and time periods. My analytical framework had identified these patterns by applying advanced data analysis techniques to comprehensive transaction records obtained through court-authorized financial surveillance. The breakthrough analysis revealed that the organization's senior leadership had maintained operational control through a sophisticated communication and coordination system that relied on legitimate business transactions to convey instructions and transfer resources. This system had been designed to appear normal to casual observation, while enabling centralized management of diverse criminal enterprises. The intelligence team's assessment of this discovery indicated that the communication system represented a strategic vulnerability that could be exploited to gather evidence of senior leadership involvement, while disrupting organizational coordination capabilities. The analysis also revealed that timing was critical because the organization was implementing security upgrades that would eliminate this vulnerability within a matter of weeks. My recommendation to Deputy Assistant Director Harrison emphasized the need for immediate action to exploit this intelligence breakthrough while the opportunity remained available. The recommendation required accelerating planned operations while maintaining coordination among multiple agencies and ensuring adequate legal preparation for successful prosecution. The decision to accelerate operations based on my analytical assessment represented a significant test of the credibility and leadership reputation I had established within the task force. The recommendation required supervisors to allocate substantial resources and accept increased operational risks based on analytical conclusions that had not been independently verified through traditional investigative methods. Deputy Assistant Director Harrison's decision to authorize accelerated operations reflected confidence in my analytical capabilities while demonstrating the practical value of systematic intelligence analysis for operational decision-making. His authorization included commendations for innovative thinking and strategic leadership that contributed to task force effectiveness. Agent Vale, he told me during the operational briefing, "Your analytical breakthrough has provided the task force with exactly the kind of strategic advantage that complex investigations require. This discovery demonstrates the value of systematic thinking applied to sophisticated criminal enterprise." The accelerated operational timeline required coordinating simultaneous enforcement actions across multiple jurisdictions, while maintaining operational security that would prevent subjects from destroying evidence or fleeing to avoid prosecution. This coordination challenge tested every aspect of my leadership development, while providing exposure to the practical demands that characterized major federal operations. My responsibilities during the coordination phase included managing intelligence updates from multiple sources, maintaining communication with operational teams across different geographic locations, and providing real-time analytical support for tactical decisions that could affect operational outcomes. These responsibilities required processing complex information rapidly while maintaining accuracy under time constraints and operational pressure. The coordination efforts revealed both the strengths and limitations of multi-agency task force operations. The diverse expertise and resources available through agency partnerships enabled comprehensive approaches that no single organization could achieve independently. However, the different priorities and procedures among participating agencies created communication challenges that required careful management to maintain operational effectiveness. My systematic approach to coordination involved establishing redundant communication systems that could maintain connectivity despite technical failures or security breaches, while creating decision-making protocols that balanced collaborative input with operational efficiency. This approach proved essential when unexpected developments required rapid modifications to planned operations. The operational execution proceeded according to strategic plans despite several complications that required real-time problem-solving and coordination among field teams. My analytical support during execution included assessment of evidence collected during search warrants and tactical guidance for investigators who encountered unexpected situations that were not covered by existing operational plans. The immediate results of the coordinated operation exceeded expectations in terms of both evidence collection and operational impact. 23 individuals were arrested on charges ranging from racketeering to money laundering, while substantial assets were seized and significant operational capabilities were disrupted. More importantly, the operation had successfully dismantled the organizational structure that had enabled the criminal enterprise to operate effectively across multiple jurisdictions. My contribution to operational success attracted recognition from participating agencies and senior bureau officials who acknowledged the analytical innovations and leadership effectiveness that had contributed to achieving strategic objectives. This recognition established credibility within the broader federal law enforcement community while providing foundation for advancement to senior management positions. The successful conclusion of the Organized Crime Task Force operation generated recognition within the Bureau hierarchy that positioned me for advancement to supervisory positions significantly ahead of normal career progression timeline. The combination of analytical innovation and operational leadership had demonstrated capabilities that senior officials considered essential for addressing evolving threats to national security and public safety. My performance during the task force operation resulted in recommendations for assignment to the Bureau's Senior Executive Service Preparation Program, which provided specialized training for agents who had been identified as candidates for executive-level positions. This program represented accelerated career development that reflected exceptional performance and leadership potential. The task force experience had also provided exposure to senior officials from multiple federal agencies who recognized the value of systematic analytical approaches to complex investigation. These professional relationships would prove essential for future career advancement while establishing a network of colleagues who shared similar approaches to federal law enforcement challenges. My analytical work during the task force operation was documented in formal reports that were distributed throughout the federal law enforcement community as examples of innovative investigative techniques. These reports established my reputation as a thought leader in financial crimes analysis while providing foundation for speaking opportunities at professional conferences and training programs. The recognition generated by task force success also attracted attention from federal prosecutors who recognized the value of systematic evidence analysis for building complex cases that could withstand sophisticated legal challenge. These relationships provided opportunities for collaboration on high-profile prosecutions while developing understanding of legal standards that would influence future investigative strategy. Special Agent Thompson, who had supervised my initial field assignments, provided guidance about managing the career acceleration that task force success had generated. Her advice emphasized the importance of continued professional development and strategic career planning that would prepare me for senior leadership responsibility. Agent Vale, she told me during our career planning discussion, your task force performance has established you as one of the Bureau's most promising senior leaders. However, advancement to executive positions requires additional skills related to policy development and organizational management that extend beyond operational effectiveness. The successful completion of the Organized Crime Task Force represented a milestone in my professional development that provided opportunities for reflection on the career trajectory that had emerged from initial commitment to federal law enforcement, despite family skepticism. The recognition and advancement opportunities generated by task force success validated career choices that had often required choosing professional authenticity over family expectations. The leadership experience gained through managing the intelligence team had developed confidence in my ability to coordinate diverse personnel while maintaining analytical rigor under operational pressure. These skills would prove essential for advancement to supervisory positions that required managing complex organizations while achieving strategic objectives through collaborative effort. The task force operation had also provided insight into the broader impact that federal law enforcement could achieve through systematic approaches to complex criminal enterprises. The successful dismantling of a sophisticated organization had protected countless potential victims while disrupting criminal activities that threatened legitimate institutions and community safety. My growing reputation within federal law enforcement created opportunities for influence that extended beyond individual casework to include policy development and training initiatives that could improve investigative capabilities throughout the law enforcement community. These opportunities aligned with personal values related to service and professional contribution while providing meaningful career advancement. However, the demands of senior-level responsibilities continued to create distance from family relationships that had once provided emotional support and encouragement. The successful completion of high-profile operations generated recognition that my family struggled to understand or celebrate, creating persistent tension between professional achievement and personal relations. The foundation had been established for advancement to executive positions within federal law enforcement through demonstrated analytical capability, operational effectiveness, and leadership performance that exceeded expectations for traditional career progression. The systematic approach that had enabled academy success and early case achievements continued to guide development toward senior management responsibilities that would test every aspect of my professional capability. Tomorrow's chapter will reveal how this foundation supported advancement to supervisory positions and the management of complex organizational challenges that would prepare me for eventual appointment to executive leadership within the Bureau hierarchy. The recognition generated by my leadership performance during the Organized Crime Task Force operation accelerated my advancement to supervisory special agent after only 3 years of field experience, representing exceptional career progression that reflected demonstrated analytical capabilities and operational effectiveness under complex investigative conditions. This promotion carried expanded responsibilities for managing investigative teams, coordinating multi-jurisdictional operations, and developing policy initiatives that would influence bureau-wide approaches to sophisticated criminal enterprise. The promotion ceremony took place at FBI headquarters in Washington, attended by senior officials who had observed my professional development through successive assignments involving increasingly complex investigation. The formal recognition provided validation of career choices that had required sustained commitment to analytical excellence and leadership development, despite persistent family concerns about the personal costs associated with federal law enforcement responsibility. Assistant Director Patricia Wong, who supervised the Criminal Investigative Division, delivered remarks during the ceremony that emphasized the Bureau's commitment to promoting agents whose performance demonstrated exceptional analytical capability combined with leadership effectiveness under operational pressure. Her comments specifically acknowledged the innovative approaches I had developed for addressing complex financial crimes and organized criminal enterprises. The advancement to supervisory rank represented transition from operational leadership to organizational management, requiring development of administrative skills and policy expertise that extended beyond the tactical competencies needed for field investigation. This transition would test my ability to translate analytical insights into systematic improvements that could enhance investigative effectiveness throughout the Bureau's organizational structure. My parents attended the promotion ceremony, representing their continued effort to understand and support career achievements that remained fundamentally different from their expectations for conventional professional success. Their presence at headquarters provided additional exposure to the institutional respect and recognition that exceptional performance could generate within federal law enforcement, offering them insight into the sophisticated professional environment that shaped my daily responsibilities. However, their conversations with other attendees revealed persistent uncertainty about the long-term implications of my career trajectory and continued hopes that my advancement within the Bureau would eventually lead to opportunities in private sector positions that would provide greater financial security and social acceptability. Their pride in my achievement remained tempered by concerns about the personal sacrifices that senior leadership positions would require. My father's interaction with Assistant Director Wang during the reception following the ceremony provided him with direct insight into the respect that my analytical work had generated among senior bureau officials. Her explanation of my contributions to major investigations and policy development initiatives offered perspective on the significance of my professional achievements within the federal law enforcement community. The promotion to supervisory special agent coincided with assignment to lead the financial crimes section at FBI headquarters, responsible for developing investigative strategies and analytical frameworks that would guide field office operations targeting sophisticated white-collar criminal enterprises. This assignment reflected confidence in my ability to translate operational experience into policy initiatives while managing complex organizational challenges that required coordination among multiple bureau divisions. The Financial Crimes section supervised investigations involving securities fraud, money laundering, public corruption, and organized crime enterprises that operated across traditional jurisdictional boundaries through sophisticated financial mechanisms. These investigations required analytical capabilities that exceeded those needed for conventional criminal cases, as well as coordination among federal agencies, international partners, and private sector entities that possessed relevant expertise and information. My leadership responsibilities included managing a staff of senior agents and analysts who provided operational support to field offices while developing innovative investigative techniques that could address evolving criminal methodology. This management change required balancing individual expertise with collaborative effectiveness while maintaining analytical standards that would support successful prosecutions of complex cases. The section's operational priorities reflected bureau recognition that financial crimes had evolved beyond traditional models to include technology-enabled schemes, international coordination, and sophisticated money laundering operations that threatened the integrity of legitimate financial institutions. Addressing these evolving threats required systematic approaches that combined traditional investigative techniques with advanced analytical methods and extensive interagency cooperation. Deputy Assistant Director Marcus Thompson, who supervised the Criminal Investigative Division's white-collar crime programs, provided initial guidance about the strategic objectives and operational challenges that would shape my leadership tenure. His briefing emphasized the need for innovative thinking and systematic coordination that could overcome defensive measures employed by sophisticated criminal enterprises. Agent Vale, he explained during our first strategic planning meeting, your analytical innovations and leadership effectiveness have prepared you for policy development responsibilities that will influence investigative capabilities throughout the Bureau. Success in this position requires translating operational insights into systematic improvements that can be implemented effectively across multiple field offices. He continued, the criminal organizations we are targeting have adapted to law enforcement pressure by developing sophisticated operational security measures and extensive coordination networks that complicate traditional investigative approach. Your leadership challenge involves developing innovative strategies that can overcome these defensive measures while maintaining legal standards necessary for successful prosecution. My initial assessment of financial crimes section operations revealed opportunities for systematic improvements in analytical methodologies and information sharing protocols that could enhance investigative effectiveness while reducing resource requirements for complex cases. This assessment required examining existing procedures while identifying innovative approaches that could address operational challenges identified through field office feedback and case review process. The analytical framework development involved creating standardized procedures for financial data analysis that could be applied consistently across different types of investigations while accommodating the specialized requirements of specific criminal enterprises. This standardization would enable more effective coordination among field offices while ensuring analytical quality that would support successful prosecution. The framework also addressed information sharing challenges that had complicated previous multi-jurisdictional investigations by establishing clear protocols for data exchange and analytical coordination among federal agencies, state law enforcement organizations, and international partners.
These protocols would facilitate more comprehensive investigations while maintaining operational security necessary for protecting sources and methods. My systematic approach to framework development involved extensive consultation with field office supervisors, experienced investigators, and federal prosecutors who possessed practical insights into operational challenges and legal requirements that would influence implementation effectiveness. This collaborative process ensured that policy initiatives reflected operational realities while addressing documented needs for improved investigative capability. The resulting analytical framework incorporated advanced data analysis techniques, standardized reporting procedures, and coordination protocols that could accommodate different types of financial crimes while maintaining consistency in evidence collection and case development process. The framework also included training components that would ensure effective implementation across field offices with varying levels of technical expertise. Senior officials throughout the Criminal Investigative Division recognized the comprehensive nature of the analytical framework while acknowledging its potential for improving investigative outcomes across a broad range of complex cases. The framework represented systematic thinking applied to organizational challenges that had previously been addressed through ad hoc solutions that lacked consistency and scalability. Assistant Director Wong's assessment of the framework development process emphasized the strategic value of systematic approaches to policy development while identifying potential applications beyond financial crimes investigation. Her feedback indicated that the methodological approach I had employed could serve as a model for similar policy initiatives addressing other categories of complex federal crime. Agent Vale, she told me during our framework review meeting, this systematic approach to analytical standardization represents exactly the kind of innovative thinking that the Bureau needs for addressing contemporary investigative challenges. The framework you have developed could serve as a foundation for similar initiatives throughout the Criminal Investigative Division. The successful implementation of the analytical framework required developing comprehensive training programs that would ensure effective adoption across field offices while providing ongoing support for investigators who needed technical assistance with complex financial data analysis. This training initiative represented a significant organizational undertaking that required coordination among multiple Bureau divisions and external partners who possessed specialized expertise. My leadership of the training initiative involved designing curriculum components that would accommodate different levels of technical expertise while ensuring consistent application of analytical procedures across diverse investigative contexts. The training program needed to balance theoretical understanding with practical application while providing investigators with confidence in their ability to apply new methodology as effective. The curriculum development process required collaboration with experienced investigators, analytical specialists, and training personnel who possessed insights into effective instructional techniques and practical constraints that would influence program implementation. This collaborative approach ensured that training components reflected operational realities while addressing documented needs for improved analytical capability. The training program included both residential instruction at the FBI Academy and field-based workshops that would provide hands-on experience with actual case materials under supervision of experienced analytical specialists. This combination of theoretical instruction and practical application would ensure comprehensive understanding while building confidence in investigative personnel who would be responsible for framework implementation. My personal involvement in training delivery provided opportunities to establish relationships with field office supervisors and experienced investigators while gaining insights into operational challenges that had not been apparent during policy development process. These relationships would prove essential for ongoing program refinement and continued professional development within the broader federal law enforcement community. The initial training sessions revealed both the effectiveness of the analytical framework and areas requiring additional development, to address specialized investigative scenarios that had not been fully anticipated during policy development. The feedback from training participants provided valuable insights for program improvement while demonstrating widespread appreciation for systematic approaches to complex analytical challenges. Special Agent Martinez, who had continued to provide mentorship throughout my career development, participated in several training sessions as a subject matter expert on organized crime investigation. His involvement provided additional credibility for the training program while offering perspective on potential applications beyond financial crimes investigation. Agent Vale, he told me after observing one of the training sessions, your approach to analytical standardization and training development demonstrates the kind of systematic thinking that senior leadership positions require. This training initiative could serve as a model for similar programs addressing other investigative specialization. The analytical framework implementation facilitated improved coordination among federal agencies that had previously experienced communication challenges during complex multi-jurisdictional investigation. These coordination improvements enabled more comprehensive investigations while reducing resource duplication and enhancing information sharing among agencies with different operational priorities and procedural requirements. My role in facilitating multi-agency coordination involved establishing regular communication protocols and joint training initiatives that would build relationships among personnel from different organizations, while ensuring consistent application of analytical procedures across agency boundaries. This coordination challenge required understanding diverse institutional cultures while developing collaborative approaches that respected agency autonomy while achieving shared objectives. The coordination efforts resulted in successful joint operations involving the FBI, DEA, IRS criminal investigation, and multiple U.S. attorney offices that achieved prosecutorial outcomes that exceeded individual agency capabilities while demonstrating the practical value of systematic analytical approaches applied to complex criminal enterprise. These successes generated recognition throughout the federal law enforcement community while establishing precedents for future collaborative initiatives. One particularly significant joint operation involved dismantling an international money laundering network that had been operating across multiple federal jurisdictions while utilizing sophisticated financial mechanisms that had previously frustrated individual agency investigations. The operation required coordination among 12 federal agencies and 6 international partners, while maintaining operational security necessary for protecting ongoing investigation. My analytical coordination of this operation involved developing comprehensive intelligence assessments that guided tactical decisions while ensuring consistent information sharing among participating agents. The systematic approach enabled identification of operational vulnerabilities that had not been apparent to individual agencies, while facilitating coordinated enforcement actions that maximized investigative impact. The operation resulted in 47 arrests, substantial asset forfeitures, and disruption of criminal networks that had been facilitating money laundering for organized crime enterprises, drug trafficking organizations, and terrorist financing operations. More importantly, the operation demonstrated the effectiveness of systematic analytical approaches applied to complex multi-agency investigation. Deputy Assistant Director Thompson's assessment of my coordination performance emphasized the leadership skills and strategic thinking that had enabled successful collaboration among diverse agencies with different priorities and operational procedures. His feedback indicated that my combination of analytical capability and coordination effectiveness positioned me for advancement to executive positions requiring broader organizational leadership. Agent Vale, he said during our operation assessment meeting, your coordination of this complex multi-agency operation has demonstrated the kind of strategic leadership that executive positions